digital radio, on the app, on your smartphone, on X, YouTube, and Facebook. The Sportscast. Expect the unexpected.
The update presented by the Sportscast.
Welcome to the Sportscast, March 17th, 2025. Happy St. Patrick's Day. If you haven't yet, please subscribe in all our channels, YouTube, Facebook, X, and Apple Podcasts, also Spotify. You can also listen to us on your smart speaker. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a rating and a review. It will help us out tremendously. We're also on online digital radio. You can visit our website, thesportscast.net. Also, follow us on X at the Sportscast1 and also Instagram at the Sportscast1. And check out our app, the Sportscast for iOS. It is March, and March equals basketball. March Madness is here. We're going to preview it. And join us, Gabriel Esparza, Sportscast contributing writer. Welcome back to the Sportscast.
Hello, Santiago. Thank you for having me. This is a great time in sports. We have college basketball, heavy soccer, NBA is heating up. We're about to have the playoffs there. So yeah, I'm and the NFL free agency. So yeah, I'm excited to talk all of it with you, man.
Good segue here. Big news last night. I think it happened around midnight last night. Bengals signed both Chase and Higgins, Jamar Chase, to a huge 4-year extension. Joe Burrow actually was a proponent of this to happen. He had a couple of press conferences and says pressuring the Bengals organization to sign both these guys. The total, Jamar Chase was signed to a 4-year, $161 million extension, and T. Higgins to a 4-year worth $115 million. Two big receivers in the Bengals. Your thoughts over this, Gabriel?
Yeah, I mean, good for them. They got their bag. They got what they've been wanting individually. The Bengals now have to nail it in the upcoming draft at defense. I would say at every position, because offense wasn't the issue last year, particularly on that back half, that latter half of the year. Joe Burrow really, to me, had a legitimate case as an MVP candidate, even though the records suggested otherwise. He was spectacular. The offense was really clicking toward the end. It was the defense that often let them down. So I guess they're doubling down with this approach. I think it's going to work for them long term. I mean, the adage is defense wins championships. I think that still holds to be true. I think that will always be true, even in an offensive league, even with the rules and the league shifting more toward the offensive side of the ball. So they now have to really solidify the young talent on the other side of the ball if they're actually going to make a postseason push.
Gabriel, you're 100% right. Their defense was struggling last year. That's something they needed to do. They were close to making the playoffs. They were kind of like a little bit more outside than in. Obviously, they were competing with Miami to get that last playoff spot. Also, the Colts. But Joe Burrow wanted this. Obviously, their own line is a big issue. Something that Burrow has been dealing with injuries and things like that to protect them. They've re-upped it last year, but I didn't see much progress. But do you think this Bengals team is still that team that could beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, or maybe go to the Super Bowl, or you think they still need to do more tweaking?
No, because if you have to win games all the time, if you have to win games 42-35 each time, you're one of those times the coin is going to flip your way. So I really think that I think they have a better chance of making the playoffs, obviously, but I wouldn't pick them to go to the Super Bowl anytime soon.
And there you have it. I see the new store here. They might want to upgrade. Well, this might be an opinion piece. They're trying to get Brandon Sheriff and Calais Campbell for roster upgrade. That will not be a bad thing.
Yes.
So, and they just signed Oren Burks to 2-year deal. So we'll see what happens with this Bengals team. I like this Bengals team a couple of years ago, well, 2 years ago, when Joe Burrow was a rookie. He went to the Super Bowl his rookie year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There you have it. So he beat the Chiefs, and there's one team that is able to beat the Chiefs, but as of late, they haven't. So we'll see what happens with the Cincinnati Bengals. Promising star Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, now Jamar Chase. So they keep the offense intact, but of course, as Gabriel says, you can't have just one half of the pie. You have to have the full pie to have potential place in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. All right, news this morning: Texans Stingley, Eric Stingley Jr. signed with the Texans to a 3-year, $90 million extension. He actually is he's actually highest paid, Inks record breaking. Actually, your thoughts over this? I mean, he's only 23.
Yeah, third-year player. He was a high draft round pick for the Texans at the time. Obviously, this one paid off. See, this is what the Bengals need. They need someone who can potentially reset the market on that side of the ball. I like Derek Stingley a lot, and you have to think they got ahead of it. They gave him. I can't imagine he's too upset by this deal. You have to imagine that this bodes well for their relationship moving forward, and that if push comes to shove, if they need another piece, and like, hey Derek, can you help us out here? We had you earlier, right? We need to restructure your deal. We need to get you another, a tandem pair on the other side of the ball. I would have to think that this can only help things, and the Texans are a team that you have to feel good about. So I like this move, and good for Derek. Good for Derek.
Yeah, good for Derek. As you were saying before, like this, like a lot of these players that get highest paid, they could restructure the deal to save some cap in the space for the team. I think Dak Prescott did that recently, so this is
Yeah.
not it's very common. So hey, it
Yep.
looks good now, but hey, if you want to win some championships, then you have to stretch out your contract. But Stingley actually he surpasses J.C. Horn, who signed a deal that paid 25 million per year earlier in March. So he surpassed it, and which is not updated in over the cap right now. Right now, J.C. Horn is listed, but I'm sure this guy Stingley will be added
Yeah.
in this list. And then Jalen Ramsey at third, Patrick Surtain, then Winfield Alexander. You can see it here on the screen. On the podcast, you go to overthecap.com. You can view the DP. But one conversation that I've been hearing a lot, Gabe, is like, how many of these non-quarterback positions are going to be paid toward like the highest paid non-quarterback positions? Crosby made that hit couple days ago. But do you think we'll see more of these non-quarterback players getting paid high like that?
Absolutely, and it's because of the good work that the agents do in this world. So we want to give them a shout out. They have a way of finagling, and they have a way of pressuring ownership. Where I guess getting the ear of the GM saying like, "Hey, you really need my guy, and you know he's worth this, right? Or else." So they advocate for their guy, and in this ego-driven business, if Buddy feels like he should be the top paid person at his position, more often than not, that's going to happen. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, like you said, it comes down to the agents.
Oh yeah.
What goes behind the scene, and everything else. Like I look at Myles Garrett. You know what? It took just money for him to stay. That was it.
Right. Great point.
And it's funny how the owner did not grant him the meeting, but show him the purse, he stays. So quite something. Make everyone happy. I'm happy. Gabe's happy, and Stingley's happy as well. So, well, let's go to the main premise of the show. March Madness tournament selection Sunday was yesterday. There was a few surprises. I think like the big one was UNC and not West Virginia, which West Virginia is actually going to sue the state itself. Is going to sue the NCAA for the situation, the snub. But UNC
Good for them.
is in the first four. They're not in the actual tournament yet, but they're in the first four, which is called the play-in for all you NBA. But what are your thoughts over this situation with UNC? We'll start off with UNC, and then we'll go on with the bracket prediction.
Listen, this is why I hate college football expansion of the playoff, because we get to argue amongst resumes that are flawed and undeserving. And that is really all you can say about North Carolina. Listen, they're now out of it. Or they're now in it, sorry, and they took the place of someone who's now out of it, who maybe should have been more deserving in a vacuum. But we all know when push comes to shove, of course they're going to have the team in with the bigger name, with the bigger brand, with more marketability. Of course they're going to get the nod if it's that close. So that's all this move said to me. I had North Carolina out.
Interesting. You brought up a good point, which has been in conversation all morning on these other sports shows, is the marketability of UNC, how much they sell jerseys, and the recognition. Of course, all credit to Michael Jordan, who put UNC in the map, arguably. But is it a money issue? You know something? I always say, look at the money trail. I'm not saying this is rigged or anything, but sometimes these decisions, it's from the committee, come from gut, maybe. And hey, look, UNC, we need them. I don't know, but do you think they'll get out of the first four?
Ooh, maybe. They might have also gotten a little lucky with who they got selected against. Had they gone up against a Texas or an Xavier, I wouldn't feel as confident. I think they should take care of the Aztecs, though. I won't be shocked. I'm not going to pretend like I won't be shocked if they do end up losing this. But then they play Ole Miss, and the old Rebels will take care of them. So in the end, justice will prevail.
Justice will prevail. You'll just give them 2 games. That's it. All right, let's look at the bracket. Number 1 overall was Auburn, number 1 in the nation. The other number 1s were Florida. They had a great run in the SEC. Then Duke, without Connor Flagg, he will be in this tournament, but he did not play in the Big Ten tournament. And the other number 1 was Houston. Before we get into the details, Gabe, what are your thoughts over the selection and everything else?
Yeah, certainly the West, that bottom half of the West is definitely the more intriguing round 1, round 2 matchups. Overall, there are definitely a lot of great opportunities here, I think, for upsets. Me personally, and I've been saying this since before it was popular, me personally, the SEC, if it comes down to it, if it's close, I think I'm giving the SEC teams the nod, because that has been the best overall conference from top to bottom throughout the course of this season. And they have some teams in there. Granted, they've beat up on each other, so that part could play a factor, I suppose. But I think this is going to be a very good year for the SEC, even in the tournament right now. I won't be surprised if we see 4 SEC teams ending up making it to the Elite 8.
Quite intriguing. SEC teams making the splash in basketball. They're probably no more than football than basketball. This time they make a splash. Let's start in this corner where Auburn is at, which they don't have this listed on the high region, but maybe Gabe can help us out on this. We got obviously one side Auburn and potentially Alabama State against St. Francis, and then Louisville versus Creighton, Michigan versus UC San Diego, Texas A&M versus Yale, Ole Miss versus San Diego or UNC, Iowa State versus Lipscomb, then Marquette versus New Mexico, Michigan State versus Brighton, Florida versus Norfolk State, UConn versus Oklahoma, Memphis versus Colorado State, Maryland versus Grand Canyon, Missouri versus Drake, Texas Tech versus UNC Wilmington, Kansas versus Arkansas, and finally St. John's, who's having a great season, versus Omaha. How do you see this bracket shaping off, Gabe? This part of the bracket.
Yeah. I really liked Omaha, and I liked their story over there in the Horizon League, but St. John's, I think, is playing too well, so I'm not expecting an upset there. Kansas, Arkansas is intriguing. Coach Cal's first year there with the Razorbacks. I'm not sold on Kansas anyway, so that would be my first upset to look for. Arkansas over Kansas, as they would then go on to play St. John's. I like Missouri here, and then advance against the winner of either Texas Tech or UNC Wilmington. UConn, Oklahoma. Let's keep it real about Dan Hurley's side. Obviously, taking a half step, maybe even a step and a half back. I don't think it's enough for them to be upset by Oklahoma, but that's okay because they're going to run into Florida. So Florida's going to take care of business there, I think. Maryland is a potential sleeper team to watch out for, a dangerous 4 seed, I would say. So that's kind of my initial impressions of this side of the bracket.
So the bracket, which I actually I pretty much called out, two of the 4 brackets. So I'd rather just keep it one for that at a time. Yeah, like UConn, what I've been hearing, not the same team as last year. Don't think they'll do a 3-peat or anything. NIL has been a big factor of why they're at not a favorable situation. Auburn, is Auburn the true number 1? Can they go all the way?
Oh yes, I guess I should have started up here. My bad.
It's okay. It's
We'll
okay. It was my bad at first because I read it all like the 2 brackets. But what do you think about Auburn?
Yeah, we'll make up for it right here, right now. And Auburn, I like a lot. To me, they are the number 1 team. I had them as the number 1 team. I understand they've lost 3 out of their last 4 or something along those lines. Again, I just credit that to them being in the SEC. They still play teams tough, and they have who I view as the best player in college basketball, Johnny Broome. So I really think Auburn's going to be fine. I don't like Creighton this year. A lot of years Creighton is good. I'd say the Big East is in general down. So I would like Louisville to advance there, but I don't see them being better than Auburn. Michigan is intriguing. I like this team a lot. I particularly their bigs. I think again in the later rounds, the Michigan backcourt I think is going to have some problems, but they'll be good enough to advance to the Sweet 16 this year because they will face Yale, and I have a golden rule of I just like selecting. I tend to pick the Ivy League team. And I'm not entirely sold on this Texas A&M. I think they're a little high here as a 4 team. So there's my 13-4 upset. I already told you I think Ole Miss advances. Lipscomb, listen, I'd love nothing more than a 14-3 upset. I don't think that happens here for Iowa State. Then Marquette, New Mexico. That's something to keep an eye on. This Marquette team, not quite what it has been in past years. There's a 10-7 upset if I've ever seen one, but it's okay because Michigan State and the Fighting Izzos will win their first match against Bryant, and they will beat New Mexico.
Wow, there you have it. You think there's about 4 upsets for this year, right? That's what you're calling.
Oh, I gotta. Yeah, that's a good number.
You have to. You just have to. So quite interesting because there's always going to be upset. No one's predicted the bracket perfectly. I think maybe 1 or 2 people that were close, but still, quite something. All right, let's go to the other side of the bracket where Duke is at. Duke, obviously, good story this year. New era of Duke's coming up. Good player Flag, who has a lot of NIL money coming in, entering the draft. You got that side. They're going up against American Mount St. Mary. Then you got Mississippi State versus Baylor, Oregon versus My Liberty, Arizona versus Akron, BYU versus VCU, Wisconsin versus Montana, St. Mary versus Vanderbilt, Bama versus Robert Morris. What do you think about this bracket part? Obviously, you said SEC, so we'll see how far you have Alabama going. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I say SEC, and right away, I think Mississippi State. I don't think they'll be able to keep up with Baylor as highly as I think of the SEC. I think the Big 12 is the second best conference in the United States right now, followed by the Big 10. That's just how I view it personally. But it doesn't matter because they'll play Duke with or without Cooper Flag. I think Duke makes it to the Sweet 16. We kind of saw that too in the ACC championship. This Duke team, they've got plenty of horses, and Flag I think was more so held out for precautionary reasons. So I expect him to be back, maybe even sit out the first round and come back for the second round. But I think Duke will make it to the Sweet 16. Oregon Liberty. Listen, I didn't know Liberty was your team. I don't mind a shout here for a 5-12 upset here. I'm
Hey,
just
I'll
not
take it.
entirely sold on Oregon. I'm not gonna lie, but I wouldn't have them going too much further. I think Arizona beats Akron and then would beat the winner of Oregon Liberty as well. That's how I see it.
I see it too,
VCU
yeah.
is back in. VCU, if anyone needs to go on a Cinderella run, Rams Nation, where are you? I hope it's you. I'll go with a 6-11 upset here, but it doesn't matter after that because Wisconsin, the Badgers, they're good enough. Max Klesmit, Steve Carell there. I think they get it done and also advance to the Sweet 16. Then to round it out here, Alabama advances from these 4 teams to make it to the Sweet 16. Alabama, they're pretty impressive, and I think they have too much firepower for a lot of these teams that we see here at the bottom of this region.
Alabama's a dark horse in that bracket, right?
I think so.
Let's see how they do against Duke. No hope for Robert Morris, I can tell, but it's okay. But there's hope for Liberty.
No.
Let's go down south. The Houston Cougars bracket, I'm going to call it. They go against SIU Edwardsville, then Gonzaga versus Georgia. A lot of history there. SEC team. Clemson versus McNeese. Then Purdue versus High Point, North Carolina. Illinois versus Texas or Xavier. Kentucky versus Troy. That's a school in Alabama. UCLA versus Utah State. And then Tennessee Volunteers against Hartford. Your thoughts over this bracket? Is the Houston Cougars going all the way, or what do you have?
I think so. I'll be hard pressed to pick otherwise. I think maybe in a different bracket, maybe I wouldn't say Houston, but I like this Houston team. And truthfully, they were kind of robbed last year due to an unfortunate injury at the worst time, but they could have foreseeably won it all last year too. So I like this Houston team. Gonzaga has been down in recent years compared to how I view them, at least, where it's like, okay, they got an outside shot of winning it all. Could they beat Georgia? Sure. I think this is a really good game. I think Gonzaga advances, but I don't see either of these teams beating Houston.
It could be the biggest game in the first round, looks like.
The what?
The Gonzaga versus Georgia game might be the biggest game in the first round.
I think so. Yes.
Something to watch out for.
Good 8-9 matchup.
Absolutely.
I think so. Clemson advances then, and then Purdue. I don't have any funny business here. I would say Purdue advances then from a potential second round game. Illinois, I think, takes care of business against a Texas or an Xavier. Kentucky, listen, they're not bad. Obviously, they're the 3 seed. I think that Coach Pope is a year away from being an actual contender, though. I would actually have Illinois then in this second round if that's how it ends up going. I like Kentucky enough. I don't see a 3-14 upset. I don't think that they can match Illinois, though. Then UCLA, Utah State, Tennessee, Wofford. Listen, no funny business here either. The Volunteers are making it to the Sweet 16.
Gabe called it. Tennessee, some SEC strong power. But, of course, the game to watch out for this bracket, I agree, Gonzaga versus Georgia should be an exciting matchup. We got a comment from Mr. Cherry Coke. Can I share my March Madness doc? Yes, you can. If you go to the sportscast.net contact form, actually, if you go to email it to the sportscast1@gmail.com, and if you can pull it right before the show ends, which will be in like a few minutes, then we'll probably reveal it to all you guys. But there you have it. March Madness starts. It's the first 4 starts tomorrow. The first 4, so it should be exciting ones. These are the play-in games. Of course, we'll see what happens. UNC is the big one, but of course, they probably will beat San Diego State. But if you could fill out your brackets on ESPN or Yahoo or CBS, those are the places to watch out for. Let's go to soccer, the EFL Cup. Newcastle won their first cup since 1969, I believe. It's been a long time. They beat Liverpool 2-1 in London yesterday. One goal by Isak. Your thoughts over this matchup? If you saw the match, I'm not sure if you did or not.
Oh yeah, I did. This was a great game. It really, really nice by Newcastle. They really pressed the issue, and they were the deserved winners. I understand Liverpool, they got the late goal deep in stoppage time, but had
Chiesa.
they forced the what?
The player that scored it for Liverpool was Chiesa.
Okay, yes. Listen, their names are so much fun to say.
Go ahead, keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah. Listen, had Liverpool found a way to force it into extra time, it wouldn't have been deserved, in my opinion. Newcastle had the better chances. They pressed the issue way more, much better, and had better goal scoring opportunities. And you might see their possession 66-34. Liverpool didn't do much with it though. They seemed very content to just kind of pass it around. So Isak even had a goal disallowed. This very easily could have been 3 or 4-1 for Newcastle, but 2-1, they make history. You got to be I'm not a fan of Newcastle, but as a neutral observing this, you have to be happy for Newcastle and the fact that they were able to, break this long streak of not having a trophy. So good for them. Well deserved.
Yeah, good for them. Good trophy. Won by an English manager, which has not been done for a while. I think since Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
I'm a Liverpool supporter, so it was tough to see that we got knocked out of the Champions League last week, and now we lost the EFL Cup. But we do have the Premier League. We pretty much won it. Obviously, you still have to play out the games. We have about 9 matches left, but we should have it. But it was a disappointing. Liverpool looked, really exhausted. Mo Salah, and I think Kwanzaa, they both celebrate Ramadan, so they can't drink water or food during the day. Evening they can, but they looked pretty tired itself. And then, of course, Chota did not have a good performance. When Nunes and Chiesa came into the match, I thought that changed everything a little bit for Liverpool, but it was very too little too late. But congrats to the Newcastle supporters because they earned it to win a trophy in Europe, and especially in England, is very difficult. So congrats to them. But Liverpool has one trophy, I think might be the biggest one of all, is the Premier League. Tough league. And I think they'll probably win it by April. I can't say the beginning of April, but somewhere in April they'll conquer it. But great season by Slot. I thought Slot did not have good player management, to be honest. But I don't know. It's his first hurrah in the Premier League, so maybe he'll know next year. But we'll see who will Liverpool keep, because it's tough to keep your whole core. It's easier than the NFL, but it's tougher in Europe. No, it's easier in Europe, but it's tougher in the NFL because of the cap. But these players, their wages are really high. But there you have it. Liverpool, Newcastle won. Congratulations. Before we go, predictions tonight. You have an article: Nuggets versus Warriors. 2 past NBA champions going at it. Who do you have tonight, Mr. Gabe?
Yeah, so I have the Nuggets covering here. I think this will just be a close game.
Should be the close game.
My dog goes crazy.
And your dice is probably picking the Warriors, I guess. This game will be played in at San Francisco, right? I think. Yep. So it should be exciting. Steph Curry is having a phenomenal season, and with the addition of Jimmy Butler, it's been really exciting. Nuggets, they're trying to get back to the finals. Of course, they got stopped last year by Minnesota. It's gonna be way more tougher now. Now LA all jacked up with Luka, Warriors with Butler, and now of course SGA and the Thunder, who clinched last week. So it should be exciting for the NBA. Who do you think? Who do you have coming out of the West?
Me personally, I still have the Nuggets.
Oh, cool.
When they're fully healthy, they're so good, and they've been there. Typically, you need a couple years of heartbreak and pain before you're ready for that next step. So I think the Nuggets this year, assuming they get all the horses as close to 100% as possible, I think they should still be everyone's favorite, me personally.
If healthy, that's always the question. Well, there you have it. Gabe, what is the best way to reach you online to talk to you about March Madness?
Oh yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Santiago. Blast talking sports with you. We covered it all, didn't we?
We covered it all in 30 minutes, which is how my shows are. Nice and sweet.
Oh yeah. But I'm on the X at Sports Pulse 100. So check me out there. Always reposting and or commenting on things. So would love to hear your takes there. Thank you, Santiago.
No problem. And you can reach us at thesportscast.net or the sportscast1 on X, and also Instagram. We'll be tweeting throughout the week. NBA games. We got international break when it comes to soccer, but those are pretty exciting. Uruguay versus Argentina. That's going to be a good one this weekend. U.S. men's national team versus Panama on Thursday for the Haitians League semi-final. So it should be an exciting week for soccer itself. And of course, the free agency of the NFL still going on. A few names out there, but a lot of the stuff is kind of covered. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is another big question mark. And I heard that he said if it came down to the Giants, he just might as well retire. So,
oh no.
We'll see if Pittsburgh picks him up or even Cleveland. We'll see what happens. But anyways, this was a great show. Gabe, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Santiago.
And this was your update.